Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. But I was listening to three speakers, and I think it enlightened me a lot. And I can see why days like this, or afternoon like this, or morning like this is important, and how similarities are between all faiths that exist, not just the ones here, whether it's Christian and obviously Quakers, but Islam and Hindus or other forms of Buddhism that I'm aware of. So it makes perfect sense. But can I just preface by saying that simplicity could mean different to different people, depending on the environment you come from, the culture you belong to, and where you live. Just like poverty, here someone could be poor if doesn't have a car to drive or can't go on holiday, but still have a warm house to live in, hot water shower to go through, food to eat reasonably okay, but because can't go on holiday and cars and so forth and so on. So that's really important. Where I come from, and now from my point of view, I think I'm simply dressed, and I suppose most of you would agree with me. But when I go with the same dress to where I come from, to many houses, even my relatives and friends, I wouldn't be simply dressed from their point of view, because I'm wearing a trainer which is Puma, which is a brand. It has a value to it or whatever. So I think that's important in life, and which kind of is part of me. So I live in a world where I've been here in this country, in Glasgow itself, for the last 7 years, and then about 4 years in London. Before that, I lived in Delhi for about a couple of years, and then before that in Jammu, which is further north, and then from the place I call Ladakh, where I come from, which remains cut off from the rest of the world for 6 months in a year, completely except by air sometimes, with no green vegetables, fruits, absolutely no running water, not think about the hot water, running water, things like this. So I think that's what the simplicity all comes to me. For me, really coming from there, how I live, and I think in terms of me, and then also my religion, which is Islam, and I was listening to all three speakers, obviously I felt at different stage you entered into, followed Buddhism and Christianity and Quakerism, so forth. I think I'm not perhaps the right person in terms of speaking about Islam or being knowledge about Islam. But what I say is I was born as a Muslim within a family, and that's what I followed. So everything I see every day I do, but I may not be perfect Muslim. I may not look like a Muslim to many. So that's so many things, and I think at the moment it's a more controversial religion to many degrees. So I think for me, faith, religion, and simplicity is individual, apart from being faith. Our faith says so many good things, but we as individuals don't follow those or follow those. So I think that's the thing about, for me, simplicity also means where I come from, as I said. I mean, when I was trying to come here and speak, and Freda said, well, could you speak about simplicity and Muslim? I said, yes, of course I can say I'm a Muslim. I do pray at times. And I think also I must say, Muslim's religion is perhaps slightly more, so many things to do. If you are a true Muslim, you have to pray 5 times a day, you have to wash certain ways. It's more strict. There's so many things to do. I do where I can, but where I can't, I can't. So I was trying to come and say, well, do I prepare? What do I prepare? I said, well, I can. I'm going to speak what I know. So I phoned my dad this morning. He is, well, so-called religiously literate in a way, and he prays more frequently than me. So I said, well, I need to talk somewhat about simplicity in Islam, and from my perspective, but also could you highlight something in Islam? What to say about simplicity? And he said, well, it's just that's part of it. You think how I live, and that's what it is. So I think that's about simplicity. So it's really how I define it. When my parents come here, they come in 6 months, a couple of months for winter time. Often I have a discussion with my parents saying, well, could you change your shoes? I think you should wear this trouser or that trouser. For them, that's perfect. So that's a simple living, and that's how they live. And I think it's part of the Islam that comes in, that Prophet Muhammad, which is peace be upon him, that's I think most Muslims, I could be wrong, but I'm absolutely right, that they follow that as a kind of a symbol of peace. I think he was the most simple man that I read of, that I've been heard about it. Obviously, I can't guarantee that he used to sleep on a mat, very simple living. But again, if I live here, you mentioned about the hut, where it was a beautiful hut, it was a bed, there was a chair, very simple, basic things. But then again, if I take that to other part of the world, that's perhaps not simple for them. So which is why it's important that simplicity really doesn't, it has various forms and things. For me, I think I'm simple, but perhaps the dress I wear and the car I drive, I do carry a car, and the house I live, may not appear simple to people where I come from. People, my relatives, my friends, they don't believe I'm simple. It may not appear simple to them, but perhaps for many of us it does. So I think that's really part of it. So I think for Islam, if you think about as a religion, that's core. And you talked about looking after the neighbor, decluttering in terms of not having things, or for Islam, simplicity comes in terms of how you talk. You mentioned about it, how you behave, how you walk, how you dress. Everything is simplicity. That's what Islam is. But do I follow that? From my point of view, I do follow what I think is simple. But again, not many. And if you go to Saudi Arabia, which is supposed to be the guardian of the most holiest place in the world, you got very glitzy buildings and marbles and things. So is that simple? I don't know, but they believe that that's simplicity. So I think for me, really, what I was trying to say is religion, faith, all talks about things, but at the end of the day, it's about individuals as how we live day-to-day life. That's really about simplicity. So that's what I try to follow, and that I follow that in terms of what I do. And if I'm earning a little more here, I try to put it back to places where where I run a school in Ladakh. So a proportion of my salary goes into the school. So for me, I think although yes, I work, I earn nothing, but I think I define simplicity by at least trying to put that money into something where I come from, which I could easily get a nice something different. But having said that, I still have a car, I still have a nice house and warm things place. So that's really what simplicity means to me. I wouldn't say much about it. That's what simplicity means to me and my religion. So I think for me, simplicity is my religion, my culture, the way I live. So it's three together that makes it different. So I could be a Muslim, whatever details what the simplicity about, but I could be different if I'm individually, culturally, if I'm different. So, when I came to Glasgow, I work for a charity called Reach, and most of our works involves working with ethnic minority communities, i.e. Asian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and demography of Glasgow is such there's a large number of Muslim population, especially in Pakistan. So when I started working and dealing with those individuals who are Muslims, as I am, I've learned so many things about different forms of Islam, which I've never learned. Although I'm, as I said, born in a Muslim family, my parents follows. I lived in Srinagar, Kashmir, Indian part of Kashmir, with 99% Muslim for 5 years. But still, you can see so many. I think that's about culture, your environment, I believe. So I think simplicity, that's what simplicity means to me. And I think, as I said, what simply means to me, not mean to you or someone else. But that's something we don't have to worry about. As long as you're content with what you do, what you believe in. And I think that's important. That I believe. Thank you very much.